Okay, so today we're going to talk about how we can add CSS in order to style our web pages a little bit better. So CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. CSS is used to create style and structure on a website. And right now you don't have to be taking notes. You're going to code along with me in just a second. So I just want you to see, now the left is Instagram without a CSS and the right is Instagram with CSS. So you can see that the left is not very exciting. It has an unordered list here. It has a couple of images here that show up. It has two of these boxes right here, which you can create in HTML. But it's not very exciting here. When you add the CSS to it, these boxes that are shown right here, they end up being centered with the Instagram logo above it. You see the images of the different phones, Instagram on different phones, and you see the links here. So CSS adds structure, so it allows things to be put into a certain place on the web page, and it also allows style, like it allows you to format the text using different font families and add color and logo. Here's the website Steam to the left is without CSS and then with CSS. So you can see it makes a huge difference. Every once in a while you'll see a website load up without CSS and you'll wonder what's going on. And if you refresh it, what's happening is it's just not loading the style sheet that's associated with the HTML. Okay, so CSS looks different than HTML. It's a different deal in and of itself. There are three main parts to a piece of CSS. There is a selector, and this is going to refer to the paragraph tag. So this right here is telling everything in the paragraph tag, everything with paragraph tags around it, to make the text color red. Okay, so there is a selector, that's called a selector. This is a property, that's what you want to actually style, and then this is the value. And you'll notice that unlike Python, where we use strings to surround the, or we used quotes to surround anything that was strings, like with the turtle, we had to put quotes around the any color. We don't have to do that in CSS. So we have this selector telling it what tag to start to style, the property that you want to style, and the value that you want to put in that style. And this semicolon here, that's a colon or the two dots. The semicolon is a dot and a comma. That is required to be at the end of each line of CSS. And I'm going to go over this in just a second. We're going to add some CSS to our file. Okay, the selector, so this is just a quick note of what I just said. The selector determines which tag we're going to style. The property determines what about the tag we are going to style. And the value tells how we're going to style it. Okay, note that there's curly braces here, and the use of semicolon is required here. So there's a colon here to separate the property from the value, and a semicolon after the value. Okay, so one thing to note is that if you say the property and the value repeat itself, it's going to actually only see the latest instance of it. So it's going to only use the last thing that you said. So if you ask the paragraph to the text to be colored red and then colored blue, the text is actually going to be colored blue. Okay, so let's add some CSS to the file that we have been working on with the universe. Okay, so we're going to, if we jump into our file and we're on index.html, we're going to actually click over to style.css. Now, one thing to notice is that in the head of the HTML file, you actually have a link here to the CSS file. And if that link wasn't there, then you could type all you want in this file, but it wouldn't make any changes to the main HTML file because that link would not be present. Okay, I'll show you that a little bit later if I remember to, that if you comment that out, and you can use comments the same, there's a shortcut key for comments, remember command ? That puts that line in comment just like it used to do in Python. If you comment that out later on, it will take away all the style that we've added. Okay, so here is the style.css. Now Glitch has some default style that's added to H1, like makes it blue and italicizes it, makes it a different color. But if you delete all of that, then this is like the standard default font size, font color that comes with all HTML files, right? Links are in purple. If you click on a link, usually it will show that you've clicked on it by changing the color of a clicked link. This is the standard H1 color and size, H2, standard color and size, and so on. So we're going to change some of these properties so that we can make our page look a little different. Okay, and we do all of the style changes in CSS. You could put them in the HTML file in a CSS section, but it's easier for us to just put it in a separate file because the syntax looks really different than HTML. All right, so remember the first thing that you have to do is you have to tell the CSS, you have to tell CSS which item you're trying to style for. So we're going to start with H1, right? I'm going to say H1 space, and then I'm going to put an open curly brace, and it automatically adds the closing curly brace, and I'm going to return it so that they're sort of separated. It's just you don't have to do this, but it looks a little bit better when you do this, and it's easier to read. So for the H1, I first want to change the color. So if I just write color colon, it's going to be the text color. So if I say blue and put a semicolon here and then refresh it, it's going to change the text color to blue. Okay? And you know what, just as a way of HTML color names, we're going to go over different ways to change color other than their names, but these are just different color names. I think we did, there's a beautiful website that we used before, but this is fine. These are just different reds, different, you can go through this and try to figure out what to do. Maybe I like dark orchid. Okay. There's another way to change it, which is using the hexadecimal value or the RGB value. We're going to go over that a little bit later in an advanced color section. Okay, so here I'm going to change the color. I can actually change it to dark orchid. Let me see if I put it. It probably doesn't always have to be in all caps. You can test that out by just putting it in all lowercase and see if it works, but it works in all caps. Okay, to change the text size, I actually have to use the word font size, okay? And font size takes a pixel value, so we're going to say like 25px. All right, and let's refresh that, and you can see, actually that was smaller, so actually let's move it to, I don't know, 40px. Okay, and then let's change the font family. So F-O-N-T, like the way the font looks. So font family. Now, what I've done, and I'll put this in Google Classroom, there is a great link that explains the different font families. So you have font without serifs. Serifs are little curly cues that begin and end a letter. So these are sans serif, or without the curly cues. Arial, Helvetica, these are all font names that are recognized by every browser. So let's say that I want to use this one, NATO Sans. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go here, I'm going to say paste that in here and put a semicolon there. And when I refresh it, it should change the name, it should change the font style, but I don't know why it didn't. I found that some of the stuff on this web page worked and some of it did not work. So let's try this one right here, okay? I'm going to paste it in here. Then it looks about the same. So let's see. Let's try let's try actually one with serifs. So these are the ones with serifs. They have little extra like things on the ends, like the Y has a little bulb at the end. They just look a little bit curlier. So this normal font with serif. So let's try the American typewriter and see if that will be recognized by our development environment here. When I refresh it, yeah, so you can see like this one was recognized. So I've tried to go through them and figured out which ones were recognized. A lot of the ones on this page, the fantasy ones, they don't differentiate between some of the fantasy ones, except like if you say stencil STD, like that's recognized, but you'll just have to kind of, guess and check, like grab one, and if it doesn't work, grab another one. I don't really know why some of them change and some of them don't, but that's a different conversation. So you have font size, font family. Let's change the background color. I'll show you what that does. So let's say the background color. Let's grab one that actually looks very dissimilar to that. So let's say khaki, right? Or kind of like moccasin. So let's go here. And you can change them to whatever you want to change them to. The idea is that you're just changing all of these properties so you recognize. I'm going to do text align and center here, and that will align this into the center. And let me show you what this looks like in the larger page. So I changed the font family, the font size, the background color, and the color of the text itself. Okay, so that's basically what you're going to do for all the H1 through H5. Okay, so if I wanted to change, let's say that I wanted H1 and H2 to have the same properties, what I could do is go H1 comma H2, meaning that I want my selectors to be both H1 and H2. And if I refresh this, you'll notice, let me refresh it here so you can see it, that H1 and H2 have the same properties, okay? But I actually want you to change them all so they're slightly different. So you can copy this and paste it right there and go to H2 and then just like change these colors. Maybe you want this to be hot pink, and maybe you would like this to be, let me see, dark slate gray. Let's see if that recognizes it. Yep. Yeah, like change the font size so that it's slightly smaller. You can change the font name. This one I kind of like, so let me change the font name here, or the font family rather, like that. And when you refresh it, you'll see that everything's changed about it. So you are going through all the H1 through H5s and changing all of those. Now let's say that you wanted to change the paragraph tags. So there's some other tags here, right? So you have all the H1 tags, you have the image tags, you have the paragraph tags, and then you have an unordered list tag. Well, it's pretty easy. Like all you would do is let's just say, let's paste this here and change the selector. So you're saying, okay, instead of H2, let's make the paragraph also have these properties. So when you refresh it, you'll see like everything in the paragraph have those properties. Well, it's not the best to have the paragraph be 35. So let's change the paragraph to be 18. Right here, and you'll see it's much better. Maybe this stencil font is not great for paragraphs, so you change it to, I always kind of like monospace for my paragraph, so I can do that, right? And that changes it there. So essentially you're just taking every tag that you have in the HTML and you are going to change what it looks like, okay? If you want to change the unordered list, you would just use UL. Right, and I'm going to grab all these properties so that I don't have to reinvent the wheel, just by typing them in, and I'll just go through and change. Maybe I want this to be white. Maybe I would like this to be, it's not exactly. I want you to use color names that are a little bit more exciting other than like the primary colors. So if I go back to the unordered list, you'll see that this has been changed. One thing about the unordered list though is I don't want you to put text align center. If I command question mark, if I comment that out, you'll see that the list should be actually text align left. They are by default, so you don't even have to put text align for the unordered list. Otherwise, if you put text align left, you'll see that this is the same. If you put text align right, it kind of looks a little strange because the dots won't line up. Well, I guess the dots line up, but the text all the way to the right. It's just, that's not how we align unordered lists. It doesn't look nice for us to read. It's not really readable like that. So you are changing all the properties for H1 through H5, the paragraph, and the unordered list right now.